world. Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is so great to be with all of you today. So sorry for the slightly late start today. We're having just a few technical difficulties with our dear friend, Judyth Baker, who will be joining me live today in the Joy Virtual Studio. Right now, Annie, our producer, is working with Judyth to get her set up and in the studio. So we're going to start the show so that we can get the ball rolling here on the Shannon Joy Show. And as soon as Judyth is with us, we'll bring her in and start this interview. Audible today for the Shannon Joy Show. We are obviously interviewing the amazing Judyth Baker. We're going to break this up into two interviews because her story is so complex, and it discusses not only the assassination of JFK and the recent release of the JFK files, but also the beginning of gain-of-function research, very crude gain-of-function research, and the weaponization of cancer and shots. And so this story, everything that went down in New Orleans in 1963 leads us to where we are today. So we're going to conduct the first half of the interview today, live here on the Shannon Joy Show. Then we're going to pre-record the second half of this interview, and we're going to run it as a live event this Friday. So we're going to get the full story. I really did not want to slow Judyth down. She has so much to present, a wealth of knowledge and information. As you can see from the headline here, the last living witness, one of the last living witnesses regarding the plot to assassinate JFK. And so I don't want to rush this. I want to take our time and make sure that she has all the time that she needs to tell this story. So welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. It is Wednesday, April 9th, the epicenter of yet another very, very busy broadcast week. Welcome to all of you who are joining me today on the live chat. And you see the headline, Last Living Witness, Judyth Baker, and the plot to kill JFK. Today is our live exclusive with JVB on her affair with Lee Harvey Oswald, what she saw in New Orleans in the summer of 1963. You would think that the JFK experts that are populating the mainstream news media, right-wing news media today, and even testifying on Capitol Hill post the release of the JFK files would want to talk to Judyth. Her story is extraordinary, yet continues to be suppressed. Forbidden love, the CIA, secret labs, weaponized cancer, human experimentation, and the plot to assassinate John F. Kennedy. It's hard to understate the wide-ranging ramifications of that summer in New Orleans in 1963, and the strange purview of an unwitting girl, a child genius, caught up in schemes that would impact this nation for decades to come. With the release of the JFK files comes renewed interest, media attention, and even congressional hearings. But is this just another limited hangout? Why are the experts testifying in Washington, D.C. to the exclusion of actual living eyewitnesses, like Judyth Baker? I spoke with Judyth just a few days ago, and she was marveling, quite irritated, rightly so, at this phenomenon. She has made it her life's work to set the record straight on not only the assassination, but the real threats to the posed by the biomedical industrial complex and the mad scientists who have been using weaponized shots to both kill and cure for decades in this country. Judyth's story is spectacular and verified by multiple eyewitnesses and researchers over the past 25 years. She provides exhaustive documentary support and primary sourcing, and her understanding of the events of the past can help us understand why things are so screwed up today in the 21st century in the United States of America. I was honored to meet Judyth for the filming of, as you guys know, our independent documentary, The Kill Shot, in 2023, which premiered right here on Rumble. And we're upwards over, just on Rumble alone, 220,000 views on that documentary. We've doubled that on the Twitter broadcasts and other subsequent broadcasts. So this documentary continues to gain steam. It was before its time, frankly, and the story we told was shocking. I was skeptical at first, I must confess, regarding Judyth's story, but after spending 2 days with her, I found her to be a compelling, credible witness and a lovely person. A young girl who was abused by our system, that was used by intelligence agencies and handlers in the CIA to carry out dastardly deeds. And so we are so thankful for our friend Judyth Vary Baker, and we're going to interview her live today on the Shannon Joy Show. But first, a huge thank you to our sponsors over at Blackout Coffee. They're coming in as sponsors for the Shannon Joy Show, this amazing family-owned company. They brew their coffee right out of the great state of Florida. And if you drink coffee and you care about supporting small businesses like Blackout Coffee and the Shannon Joy Show, you've got to check out their products. This isn't your average weak sauce corporate coffee. Blackout is roasted right here in the USA by people who stand for faith and freedom and hard work, and their story is just amazing. I love the team over there. They support our troops. They support the Second Amendment. They support the First Amendment with their support of the Shannon Joy Show and everything that makes this country truly great. They have everything from whole beans to ground beans. They have rough grounds that I love to use for a French press, which is my absolute favorite way to drink Blackout coffee. They have a couple standouts. The Morning Reaper is a smooth and bold medium roast that is the perfect way to start your day. And if you need a little pick-me-up, a little something more, which I often do, you're going to want to try Brutal Awakening, which is a very strong roast with loads and loads of the caffeine that you guys are going to need to start your day. So right now, normally they have 10% off specials for their audiences, but this week for the Shannon Joy Show audience, double digit 20% off your very first order. To try them out, you have to go to blackoutcoffee.com/joy. That's the URL will pop up right in the live chat of the Shannon Joy Show, and you'll get a full 20% off. You have to use that promo code JOY so that they know we sent you, and you can get double the savings, over 10%. So if you guys want to head over to blackoutcoffee.com/joy, URL popped right into the live chat and right on the comment section here in the Shannon Joy Show. They're going to take great care of you, the Shannon Joy audience, and we're super thankful for them. So thank you to Blackout Coffee for supporting and sponsoring this amazing interview with our friend Judyth Vary Baker. I have links in the description for all of you today. We have Judyth Vary Baker, her own story in her own words. Her blogspot.com is linked. Also, please follow Judyth right now on Twitter. Her handle is @Judyth, JUDYTH on Twitter. And that really is the only unsuppressed account and platform that she has today. They are suppressing her blog spot. They're suppressing the website. They're even changing it. So in order to get Judyth, in her own words, you're going to have to follow her on Twitter. So the handle is @Judyth. That's also linked in the show notes of today's headlines. Let's say hello to all of you. Then we're going to go to a quick break, make sure that we get Judyth all set up in the studio and ready to go. I see her in the studio, but we don't have her camera yet, so we're going to fix everything. But let's say hello to all of you. Amazing chatters here at the Shannon Joy Show. Make sure you guys all head over to theshannonjoy.com. That's theshannonjoy.com. Sign up for my daily e-newsletter so that we are never, ever separated. MC114, so great to see you on the live chat. Greetings from Lake Seneca, where the sunlight reflects the signs of faith, hope, peace, love, and joy. 31 degrees and partly cloudy. Unbelievable. Yesterday, about 1.5 inches of snow up here in the Finger Lakes region of New York State. Today, it is bright and sunny. No signs of snow, but it is a little chilly. Good old April in upstate New York. Buskman is with us today, and Be My Valentine. Great to see you as well. Jerry Alatalo is with us. Launch the bombshells, says Jerry. Well, Judyth always comes with bombshells. She's absolutely brilliant, and I cannot wait to talk to her. Lupine is with us, CM 1968. And I think we have a new chatter today. Cuserton Zink is with us, saying hello on the live chat. Today is National Education Day. Okay, thank you so much, Cuserton Zink. Glad to see you. Who else do we have here? Tarif is with us. Oh, you have her book, Lee and Me was a great piece by Judyth Baker. Also, informing the kill shot, Dr. Mary's Monkey, a fantastic read, and that informed a lot of my research, along with the virus and the vaccine, another must read if you want to understand why SV40, the cancer-causing virus, when used in injections, is wreaking havoc on our health today and has been for decades. SV40 was the agent that they used to create the kill shot, the cancer weapon that Judyth was involved in creating in the summer of 1963 in New Orleans. So fascinating story, and her insights are just unbelievable. AC News is with us as well. And Fez Woody, glad to see you. Oh, Jen Patton, thank you. Shannon, I am dominating this time slot. Let's go. We are live on Rumble, live on Twitter, Spreely TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, every podcast platform you can ever imagine. And of course, we're so thankful for our friends over at Patriot TV. They broadcast the Shannon Joy Show every day at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, X America News as well. And they're amazing. So let's do this. Edgar 615, great to see you as well. To anyone on the Facebook live chat, great to see you. In fact, yesterday, our Twitter live stream actually delivered the best numbers on all of our platforms, which is very cool. So if you're watching on Twitter, hello, great to see you. If you're watching on Facebook, hello, great to see you as well. Today, we are featuring Judyth Vary Baker live in the Shannon Joy studio. And then this is going to be part one of our interview. Part two is going to run this Friday. Tomorrow, Thursday, we're going to freestyle it here on the Shannon Joy Show. So we're going to move that freestyle up from Friday. You guys can ask any of your questions, launch any of your comments, and we'll do that tomorrow on the Shannon Joy Show. Thank you to our sponsors, Colonial Metals Group, of course, our friends over at Native Path family of products. We are going to be hearing from Chef's Foundry and the P600 Sizzle Set, and also our friends over at All Family Pharmacy. By the way, fenbendazole is back in stock over at All Family Pharmacy, allfamilypharmacy.com/joy, promo code JOY10, always for 10% off. Let's go to break. I think I've stalled enough. I think we have Judyth ready to go in the Joy virtual studio. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, make sure she's all set up. And when we come back, God willing, fingers crossed, let's go. We're going to bring Judyth in to the Joy virtual studio. We'll be back in a minute to continue the show.
Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf, and I have a message. President Trump is in the process of what he calls draining the swamp. But many in the MAGA movement and the MAHA movement are asking if he'll expose the entire pandemic. There's enough public evidence for people to be concerned who injected themselves in what has turned out to be a massive experiment. If you were compelled to get the shot for work, travel, maybe you just trusted the system, check out this natural solution formulated by hero doctor Peter McCullough in collaboration with the Wellness Company. They just leveled up their original detox formula, and it costs $30 less. We are introducing the 3-in-1 Ultimate Spike Detox. It's now conveniently consolidated into a single capsule with 4 times more nattokinase, 500 milligrams of bromelain, and 500 milligrams of turmeric root extract. Nattokinase, an enzyme researched for its anti-clotting effects, may work to break down spike proteins. Combined with bromelain and curcumin, it provides a potent blend for detoxification and cellular support. Crafted with 100% natural ingredients, Ultimate Spike Detox is backed by research. It offers effective support for your cell's natural repair and recovery. Experience the only formula approved and used by Dr. Peter McCullough, a top freedom-fighting doctor who risked it all to bring you the truth. Head over to dailyclouthealth.com and use the code DAILYCLOUT to get 10% off plus free shipping. Again, that's dailyclouthealth.com and use the code DAILYCLOUT to get 10% off and get back to that pre-COVID feeling.
There you go. 82. 82. Oh. Hey, everyone. We're live. All right.
Is that bright enough?
It's me, Shannon Joy. We are back. Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. So glad to have in the Joy virtual studio our dear friend, Judyth Very Baker. Judyth, welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We did it.
It wasn't easy, but we're on. Yep.
It wasn't easy, but we did it. And it is so great to see you again. 2023 was the year that we met in New Orleans to tell your story, what happened in that summer of 1963, and your relationship with Lee Harvey Oswald. The story that you tell is absolutely extraordinary, and it was just wonderful to touch base with you again earlier this week and have you here in the studio to retell some of that story, but also provide context to what we're seeing today with the release of the JFK files. So first and foremost, how are you doing, Judyth?
Well, it's been quite a roller coaster ride, from being invited on big shows and then sudden cancellations to being on other shows where it went well, except they were uninformed. See, you were informed. That makes a big difference.
Aww.
If I have to spend half my time trying to explain what a bacteriophage is, instead of getting into the meat of it. So I know that you will get into the meat of it. So I'm happy about that.
Absolutely. And we decided to split this interview up into 2 interviews because we have a lot to cover, Judyth. Not just your relationship. I mean, you provide one of the last eyewitness accounts of the months leading up to the assassination of JFK. There is much context that you can provide to what happened and add to the story that is now being released with the release of the JFK files. That's a show in and of itself. But you also have amazing insight into the weaponization of cancer, SV40 contamination of many of the vaccines that are produced today in the United States of America, the pharmaceutical industrial complex, and also the role of intelligence agencies in this type of research that is really harming the health of the American people. That's a second show in and of itself. So that's why we're breaking it up. And I think that makes sense, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's start here with the recent release of the JFK files, which has sparked new scrutiny, a new review. It has also now been the topic of the mainstream news media and also congressional hearings. How satisfied are you with the retelling of this story today as of April 9th, 2025?
Well, let's put it this way. They hyped up, we're going to release these important files. I've spent hours and hours, and I'm a speed reader, so I'm talking about I've already read thousands of these releases. Probably at least 15, 20,000 of them. I know from the way they're numbered which ones not to look at. I know they're just one page, even though they don't tell you now how many of these files just have one page. but usually the first file in a series is a just single page that identifies the rest of the series and so on.
Right.
All right, so in other words, I'm pretty familiar with what they've released, and unfortunately, we didn't get what they were telling us they were going to give us. It's very
Mm.
frustrating. For example, the 2,400 files that CIA eh, uh, wasn't involved with, but the FBI was. The FBI, way back in 2000, 60 Minutes sent me to the National Archives. I pulled many files at that time and copied them. In 2003, the team of the History Channel with Nigel Turner sent me back to the National Archives, and I went back to the same box. And I thought, well, I'll see if there's anything else. To my surprise and anguish, actually, many of the files that I had made copies of were now gone. It's
Wow.
the files, the folders were empty, and they said borrowed by the FBI. So when they talk about that they found 2,400 files, I actually have copies of most of these files that they are not releasing yet.
So
That
these are
they
not released.
found.
So you have copies of these files. They aren't releasing them. And why do you think they aren't releasing them? What do they contain?
Well, some of them are quite interesting, and of course, I didn't realize it. Remember, that was over 20 years ago. It's hard to find with those files. It was hard to connect them at the time. I was looking for other things, but I
Mm.
copied everything I could that might be related. Now, knowing more information that they have withheld, you see, Shannon, I thought that they had released, because they had released many, many files. They had already released some of this material, but they haven't.
Hmm.
They've held them back, and I was not cognizant, of course. I was accused of doing research. This is not true. But I did know names, I did know places, I did know dates, and from that I was able to pull many, many files. And finally, now I am also a researcher
Right.
because I've got enough experience.
Judyth, will you be able to release those files? So if I'm understanding, the federal government is saying that they are releasing files. You are saying there are files that they are holding back that have not been released, but they are files that you have made copies of.
Well,
Will you
of
be-
course, I don't know how many of the 2,400 that they have pulled that I have copies of, because, of course, I didn't copy every. There were 25 cents a file, so,
Okay, sure.
so I have 30 boxes of files.
Okay. So you're still, yeah. So we're going to have to look into that for sure. But I think that is that initial, the fact that they are acting as if they're releasing all these files. You're saying, hey, no, they're not. I have a bunch here. I mean, you haven't gone through them yet. That is interesting to
There
say
are
the least.
already, Shannon, 400 files they promised to release, and they have not done that.
Mm,
On top of that, they said Trump asked for these to be unredacted. Once again, many of these files have not been unredacted. They are still covered with big black spots or whiteout. That is,
mm,
pieces of white paper. The
wow.
pieces of white paper are recent, only since 2003 or 2012 or 13.
Wow.
This is, in other words, they're covering up some stuff that wasn't covered before, and I may have some of those files.
Interesting.
So I
Judith,
need help. I need people to help me sort out because I have so many thousands of them.
okay. This sounds like one of the calls I remember when they released the Pfizer documents, and Naomi Wolf was on Steve Bannon's show, and she said, I mean, there were just tens of thousands of pages, hundreds of thousands of pages of files that needed to be gone through, and researchers stepped up. So Judyth, maybe we can get something like that started so that you can release your files and release to the public what the federal government still won't release regarding the
Well,
JFK files.
we have some nuggets.
Okay.
I sent you one
Yeah.
that I don't know whether you can put that on for everybody to see or not.
I
But
haven't seen it yet, but go ahead. Tell me about it.
all right. Well, the file that we're really interested in, it was from Arthur Schlesinger Jr., who is a historian, but he was with OSS. In other words, OSS is what you had before the CIA created itself, okay, basically from the OSS. Now, he actually sent an advisory memo, a very long one, to JFK. And in this memo, he said, look, the CIA is out of control. There are parts of the CIA that the rest of the CIA doesn't even know a thing about.
Wow.
And that they have started forming their own policies. That is, they will start an op. They will start something going on like trying to dethrone, a king or dethrone a president
Sure.
because they assume that the United States government doesn't like that particular arrangement.
Right.
They will start something, he said, and then the U.S. government has to all of a sudden. You have CIA is interfering with their elections or whatever, and then the United States is forced to support that.
Wow.
So they are actually creating the protocol and the events that are occurring in the world without permission from the president or anybody else. Now, when JFK got this memo, and I have posted it on X, that is at Judyth for everybody to see, because this memo from Schlesinger was one of the main reasons that JFK said we have to chop up and get rid of the CIA,
Mantle.
divide it into 1,000 pieces, throw it to the wind. This is where it started.
Wow.
So, for example, the Bay of Pigs and everything, Kennedy didn't even know what was going on. They hid a lot of stuff from him. Then he had to take the blame.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a very important memo that did get released. Before it was released in part and portions redacted, but it's all unredacted. And I've shown you how to reach the whole thing. It's a very long memo. It blasts the CIA. Schlesinger became a close associate of JFK. He was even sent to Vietnam to check for himself, I believe, what was really going on, because you cannot even trust what the CIA was telling JFK.
Right. Right. And now come full circle, 60 years later, and it is powerful beyond comprehension. The
It
black
was then.
budgets
Even
and
then it was.
the black operations and everything that has come out of the CIA. We need serious scrutiny. Judyth Vary Baker talking to us today. Her handle on Twitter is at Judyth, and she has posted a copy of this memo, just one that she is talking about of thousands that have not been released by the federal government, even though they promised to fully release unredacted the JFK files. Let's go into the if we are to, well, first of all, are you satisfied with the revelations at this point? The answer, I think, is very clearly no.
Right.
Are you
They're
satisfied with the experts? Right. So this is
They have
mind blowing.
hearings going on now. Who are they listening to? We have Oliver Stone, who is a very good man. By the way, he came to my conference. The last one I held 9 of them in a row until COVID shut it down. 9 years in a row. I put in their witnesses that were completely ignored by the Warren Commission and by modern researchers who just didn't like them because it doesn't go along with their theories. It doesn't, and it can hurt their book sales and so on. Now, who's he got up there? He's got Jefferson Morley and James D. Eugenio. Now, they have their books and they have their theories, and you cannot mention my name to either of these two gentlemen. They have bragged for years they never read my book. Now they claim they did, but guess what? They have never emailed me, never contacted me. And one of them, John Newman, who's associate of these two, claims, he's former CIA. My friend, there is no such thing as former CIA.
Right.
All right.
Once in the CIA, always in the CIA. Right.
It's like Lee himself. By the way, this is an important detail. CIA has said that Lee Oswald.
Well, let's not get ahead, because we're going to tell the story of Lee Harvey Oswald.
Okay.
And
I did want to insert that
CIA
has always claimed that Lee was not, and they're correct. Lee was borrowed from the Office of Naval Intelligence, the ONI. Therefore, they could plausibly deny that he was ever CIA. So I just wanted to insert that now.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. And yeah, your story is so big that I try, people got mad at me in the kill shot because they're like, why do you keep interrupting Judyth? Everyone loves you, by the way, in the kill shot. And I said, and I'm kicking myself because I did interrupt, but I say to them, guys, I mean, when Judyth comes with receipts, she doesn't come with a shoebox of receipts. She comes with
a barrel,
a wheelbarrow of boxes and files. And the story, there's so much to the story. You're also a genius, right? So you have a photographic memory, right? And so the wealth of information is, and it goes all these different directions. I'm trying to get like a narrative, like a line so that people can follow.
Thank you. It's fine. Yes, and we have to keep me on track because I can go down many valleys and trails, but they all lead to the final conclusion. It's just that dropping too many names and people get lost, and I apologize for that.
No, not at all. I apologize for the interrupting. So just give us some grace, audience, please, as we try to, I always agonize over my interviews. I have these genius guests and I want to platform your full genius and I'll do the best I can with it. But that is very interesting. You're right. They have denied for so many years that Lee Harvey Oswald was, part of the CIA, but it's a sleight of hand. It's a rhetorical sleight of hand that they use to shroud the truth. And that is one of the tactics and the techniques that they use. Judyth, let's talk about so you're talking about these experts, Oliver Stone.
Well, we have witnesses, my dear.
Well, that's what I mean.
I have a list of witnesses I'd love to read off to you.
Yes, please.
That should be speaking to Congress, including myself. All right. Now, such hearings would, if they do it right, like the ARRB, they take hours because you have to connect all the dots, but we can. And I prepared a list of witnesses because if these names don't get out, by the way, a number of them have now died. But these are living witnesses, the ones that are still alive. So I'd like, first of all, my own name, Judyth Vary Baker. Then Tosh Plumlee, who actually will testify and has testified to Congress before on Contra issues and everything. So he's been before Congress before, but he was part of an abort team that Lee Oswald joined, trying to save Kennedy's life. So he is a living witness. He's still alive, but now all these people are getting old. Then there's Gail Channon Willis. Willis's father, CIA, completely documented. I have said from 1999 on, they made a trophy film to show Kennedy being shot. And her father made the film, and we have the records on that. She needs to testify.
Wow.
And not only that, but her father says that Lee Oswald was part of the team that was trying to shelter Kennedy and protect him. Okay. So why isn't she talking to them? Then there's Victoria Sulzer Powell, who can verify all that was going on, that Lee Oswald definitely was involved with Mary Sherman, Dr. Mary Sherman. This is very important. We have Edward Haslam, who tells you more about her. Claudia Hanover Roddick, who has testified twice before conferences that she saw Lee Oswald with me so often at my apartment, she thought he lived there. All right. We've got Abraham Bolden, who says that an informant for the FBI called Lee gave them information that caused them to save Kennedy's life from an assault in Chicago just 3 weeks before the assassination occurred. We have Jimbo Telho, who may not be able to testify anymore. He's so old, but he was Lee Harvey Oswald's buddy in the Marines and says Lee was the best person he ever had a Marine buddy with, and knew him personally, and so on. We have James Jenkins, who can tell you all about the autopsy and the switching of Kennedy's body from one container to another.
Oh,
Yes, so they could go and mess up his skull and everything. He's a living witness, still alive. We have Roger Stone, who is anxious to show that Nixon really wasn't as deeply involved as the others, and was really forced out because when he tried to get information. Roger, of course, is alive and kicking.
sure
All
is.
right. And then we have Robert Tannenbaum, Richard Bartholomew, Roger Craig Jr., Dick Russell, and Robert Groden, Dr. David Mantic, Vince Palomaro, Larry Rivera, and Douglas Horn. Now, why aren't we getting these people before? They've what? They've got a filmmaker, he knows a lot, and they have two guys. They're so closely associated with John Newman of the CIA, and they have their books to sell, and they have ignored us.
Sounds
That's
like
going on. Okay.
sounds like a limited hangout to me, Judy. That here we have you listed over a dozen of firsthand eyewitnesses who are still alive, willing to testify in front of Congress. We are talking about the congressional hearings for the JFK files. So far, to our knowledge, it's mainly experts, people with books to sell, people with links to the CIA, and people who are accepted witnesses. Is this really an investigation?
They're always being quoted, these talking heads, yet they prided themselves, two of them have, that they never read my book, and they wouldn't lower themselves to read my book. Yeah.
Absolutely outrageous. Today we're talking to Judyth Vary Baker. When we come back, we're gonna get the story. You know, what is the story? Such a drastic difference from what we're being told, what you're seeing on Capitol Hill, what the mainstream news media and even elements of the right-wing news media won't tell you. This is the eyewitness testimony of Judyth Vary Baker. Judyth had an affair with Lee Harvey Oswald in New Orleans, the summer of 1963, just months before the assassination of JFK. Judyth says that Lee Harvey Oswald was actually trying to stop this assassination, that he was used by intelligence in order to carry out, this dastardly deed in 1963. And she's going to tell her story. When we come back, we're going to get to the root of what happened according to Judyth's eyewitness testimony and according to the testimony of so many other people who are not being invited to Congress to tell their story and testify. That's outrageous. That's outrageous. And if you have a congressman, a member of the House of Representatives, or a senator, or if you want to contact the President of the United States of America, who promised that these files would be released, and you want the real story, maybe it's time that we, the people in this country, stand up and demand that they interview the people who were there. We'll be back in a moment to continue this story here on the Shannon Joy Show.
Parents, I have an early Christmas and holiday gift for you. We've all been there. 1 minute your child is bouncing off the walls, perfectly healthy, and an hour later, this child is very sick. You feel helpless, and it can turn your plans upside down, especially on vacation. After thousands of customer requests, the wellness company has just launched the Kids Emergency Medical Kit. You no longer have to deal with emergency illnesses in a panic. Now you can have 6 critical medications at your fingertips to treat 20 plus illnesses for issues children have, such as strep throat, ear infections, lice, and respiratory illnesses. You can avoid urgent care and hospitals. The Kids Emergency Kit has been hand-selected by the wellness company's medical board and includes chewable amoxicillin, dissolvable ivermectin, and an optional EpiPen and more. This also includes a detailed guidebook guiding you step by step in emergencies. Ordering this kit is simple. Only parents can order for their children. Fill out an intake form and you will get a verification call for consent. Then it's delivered to your door. Don't wait till you're in the middle of a crisis and avoid late night urgent care runs. Order your Kids Emergency Kit today and remove panic from your life. And if 1 or 2 of the prescriptions run out, There's a replenishment option to restock only what you need. Go to dailyclouthealth.com and grab your kid's emergency kit right now. Use code DailyClout to save up to $40 at checkout. These kits are only available in the USA. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. Love that little ditty from Chef's Foundry. I always find myself dancing along. Are you poisoning your family every time you whip up a home-cooked meal? 266 world-renowned scientists seem to think so, according to the folks over at Chef's Foundry. Every time you cook with non-stick pans, toxic chemicals like PTFE, PFAs, and PFOAs linked to cancer and autoimmune diseases leak into your food. And here's the kicker. When these chemicals heat up, they release invisible toxins that get trapped into your blood, organs, and brain. Over time, they can build up, causing things like cancer, heart disease, and infertility. Still not worried? Well, a new University of New Mexico study found that microplastics are even lodging into human brains. It's absolutely terrifying, but the solution is shockingly simple. The P600 non-toxic cookware from Chef's Foundry. It features Swiss-engineered ultra-durable ceramic, and unlike traditional nonstick pans, the P600 is 100% free of PFAs, PFOAs, lead, and cadmium. So you can get your P600 sizzle set, which we love at the Joy household, by going to chefsfoundry.com/joy. That's chefsfoundry.com/joy. And of course, make sure that you grab that 55% off discount that they are giving right now to the Joy audience. So chefsfoundry.com/joy. Annie, if you can pop them into the live chat, that URL, and also into the comment section, that would be amazing. Thank you to Judyth Very Baker for being with us today on the Shannon Joy Show. You can follow her on Twitter. Her handle is at Judyth. And you're already blowing my mind, Judyth, with the wealth of information and your knowledge of actually what happened in 1963. A lot of what we're seeing in Washington, D.C. with these congressional hearings is a dog and pony show with the usual suspects as experts, omitting live eyewitnesses like yourself who were spending time with Lee Harvey Oswald prior to that assassination, and continuing with the limited hangout. So let's set the record straight, Judyth. I would like for you to tell your story to the audience about what you saw, what you witnessed, and what you think is the truth, what you believe, according to the evidence and the eyewitness testimony, is the truth about the assassination of JFK. So let's go back to 1963 and how you got involved in all of this as a young girl, child prodigy, very brilliant. Plucked out of Florida and ending up in New Orleans. Go ahead and tell us your story.
Well, often my detractors will say that I claimed I went straight from high school to New Orleans and so on. Of course, there were almost 2 years of preparation. I was picked up. I didn't understand that they were collecting young geniuses, what they were doing after Sputnik, and grooming them because we were very afraid that we were way behind the Soviet Union. After all, they put up, by the time I was 15 or so, they actually put up a satellite that was as heavy as a car. We put up a 26-pound satellite. So we were way behind. So it was almost like grab and catch any young minds we can and go ahead and groom them. So from the time I was 15 years old, I had my own lab set up and so on because they visited me and gave me access to through Colonel. His name was Colonel Philip V. Doyle, Doyle, and there were a bunch also of retired military officers there. So I ended up learning how to read Russian and speak some of it. And I mean, who does that back then, you know? And so on.
Not usual, right?
That's right.
Right.
So I have all the records of all of that. And the upshot is that I received fast track training. One newspaper article is important because it says that after I was given training at Roswell Park Institute on how to handle deadly viruses, and they were so impressed with me, you see, because I had given mice cancer, lung cancer, in only 7 days in my own lab, which, by the way, my high school was so scared of what I was doing. When they saw the size of the tumors of the mice, they moved my lab under the stadium and rebuilt a lab there for me.
Yep. Yep. There are images of
They
that
were
as well.
terrified. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, sure. News stories and images of a young Judith Very Baker, child prodigy, and they followed you from that lab in high school
yep,
to Buffalo, New York, which was where you were trained at Roswell Park,
that's right.
and first began to understand how to inject right through a shot um, mice with cancer, and you did it, and that sparked their attention and led to them recruiting you to come to New Orleans for a very special project,
Right.
right?
In between was University of Florida.
Okay. Yep.
And so a lot of that has been lost, where I actually invented a new way to detect cancer in the bloodstream.
Mm-hmm.
It'd take 40 years before they would actually do that again, reinvent that method,
Right.
because I got kicked out of cancer research. You have no idea how angry I am about that,
Yeah.
because the ideas that I had, all they've done is go down the chemo and radiation route, which is very primitive.
Mm.
And no, we shouldn't be using gene therapy either. We need to get away from and get out of that box. I was thinking out of the box is why I could give cancer to these germ free rodents, all right, in only 7 days. And no, nobody had done that. It took 4 years for Roswell Institute, James T. Grace, Dr. Grace, to duplicate what I did, but I have the record on that. So
Right.
it took them 4 years, what I did in about 3 months.
Wow.
So it's because I wasn't thinking like them. I wasn't trained like them.
Right. Well, and this is why you ultimately ended up in New
New Orleans.
Orleans in 1963 as part of a clandestine operation to fight the war against communism and develop. Now, you didn't know this at the time when you were sent to New Orleans, but the mission was, which we now know, to create a cancer weapon, a cancer shot, and the goal was to inject it into Fidel Castro as part of the war against communism.
Yeah, and
And so,
people asked me, Shannon,
yeah,
uh, well, how are you going to get that into Castro? Well, what people don't realize is like when a doctor orders you to get a shot, does he prepare the shot himself? Does he, when they go to the refrigerator and pull this thing out that says penicillin, is it really penicillin?
right,
See,
yeah,
so we had ways.
hmm
Maybe they said, well, the doctors were unapproachable, but their techs. Imagine putting a label on on an X-ray machine, which they were stronger back then and more powerful. But you put a label on it, they can peel off later, and that tech is going to turn it up to where they think is a normal dose, and
mm,
they're going to just flood Castro with incredible
right.
amount of X-ray.
Well,
Then what they're going to do is pull that label off, and you'll never know.
well, we're getting down into let's continue with our story though,
Sure,
because that was the ultimate goal, right? That
right.
was that was now you were not that was not divulged to
I
you,
was not privy to that at the time.
and
I just all
and
I
you
knew is I was coming to help, um, and learn a lot about more cancer research, with Dr. Mary Sherman. I was induced and to go. I was gonna go, and at the end of the summer, I was supposed to go and get into Tulane Medical School. Of course, I have a witness to that. I told her before leaving, a friend of mine at University of Florida, "Hey, Oxner wants me," and then after end of summer, I'm gonna go into med school. So I've got that written letter from her affirming that.
yes,
Everything I tell you, I'm just using that as an example. Everything I
So let
tell
me
you,
just,
I
yeah,
back.
let me just recount this to the audience so that they can
Sure.
follow the storyline. Dr. Alan Ochsner was a very highly connected medical doctor in New Orleans, the head of a major hospital system. Dr. Mary Sherman was one of the world's foremost experts and leaders in cancer research to cure cancer, to heal
Yes.
people from cancer. This was a very young Judyth Vary Baker's mission and dream to help and aid in that research. She was told by Dr. Alan Ochsner that if she came down and aided with this research, that she would have a position at Tulane studying underneath some of the most brilliant cancer researchers in the world. And so this is why a young Judy Baker would travel to New Orleans by herself, 18 years old, I believe you were at the
I
time.
was 19.
19
Yeah.
years old, after the research and the grooming that she had been subjected to, she now believes by handlers and potentially people involved with intelligence in the CIA. So that sets the story for this summer and the meeting of Lee Harvey Oswald, which we now believe that he was deployed initially to be your handler, to kind of make sure that you got around to where you needed to go, that you were somewhat protected, and engage in this, what was a very crude and very early type of gain of function research, where you are
Well,
weaponizing.
it was more sophisticated than you would realize.
Right, right.
They've always been ahead of what they have put out to the public. I'm talking about government, uh, like DARPA and so on. They're way ahead of what uh, anybody would know on the outside. Now,
Right.
imagine. Here's the thing, though. I was being groomed. I was being handled. I was being watched over constantly. But I came 2 weeks early to New Orleans, and my doctors weren't there. I went 2 weeks early because they didn't understand my schedule at the university.
Mhm.
It was that university got out earlier. And Shannon, for the first time since I was age 15, I was free.
Wow.
And I didn't have much money because it was between semesters.
Hmm.
Doctors were out of town. I had to use the little bit of money I had. And so since they weren't there and the YWCA did not have my special room ready or anything, I
Right.
had to move in with 2 strippers.
I love this part of the story.
Yeah, a Playboy bunny trainee and
Oh
a
my
very
word.
profane, overweight waitress,
Okay.
and I was free, and they showed me the underbelly of New Orleans. I learned how to put on pasties.
Oh my.
They just said, "Honey, you can make money being a stripper. Why not?"
Oh my
Now
word.
imagine how Oxner, Dr. Alton Oxner and others felt when they conveyed the information that, "Look, your asset you've been carefully training, to work on this thing, and she wasn't supposed to know what's going on. You're gonna use her talents. She's running around with strippers and everything." So they
Cavorting with hookers on the streets of New Orleans, right? Getting in trouble already.
and
So,
I was
wow.
free as a bird, for
Wow.
the first time in years. Well, that couldn't be. That I'm an asset, and they rounded me up by sending Lee Oswald, who
Okay.
wasn't given that much information because what? CIA only gives you need to know, just what you have to know. By the time, Alton Oxner and everybody got back, I had found out that I so much they had to put me on the secret side instead of the unwitting side.
Okay.
Wow. So,
So
yeah.
you and Lee Harvey Oswald, he was sent to kind of rein you in and take care of you, and you fell in love. The two of you
Yeah, we
spent
did.
2 weeks, yeah, 2 weeks together, and that kind of solidified things. And then he was with you throughout the 3 months that you were there, conducting the research.
Well,
And
it's
yeah,
April, May, June, July, August, and into early September. So we had more than just a few months. We had a little bit more than that. And then we stayed in contact, Shannon, until only 37 and a half hours before the assassination
mm,
by telephonic means.
wow. So, can you tell us briefly, because we have about 25 minutes left, and I want to get to the end, which is what you believe really happened regarding the assassination of JFK and Lee Harvey Oswald's involvement, according to your eyewitness testimony, because that's really the most important aspect of our conversation today.
Yes.
But it is important that people understand what was happening in those months where you were deployed to New Orleans, and what you were engaged in regarding the creation of this cancer weapon, the kill shot, that ultimately was tested on human subjects, which ended up severing your relationship. That was kind of when you realized that they were going to use what you had created and test it on prisoners in late summer. That was when you said,
yeah, and those prisoners had volunteered, but they weren't volunteering for something that was going to kill them if it
right,
worked.
right. So if you could lead us, tell us about what the research you are.
All right.
Yep.
Yes. All right. So imagine I'm finally understanding that, and I was all for getting rid of Castro because he had aimed his missiles from the USSR straight at us only 6 months earlier. Cuban Missile Crisis, we came to the brink of World War III. Imagine today, Putin, if somebody had a chance to kill Putin in a way that wouldn't involve the US, that he got cancer, suddenly got lung cancer or something. And so the cancer product that we called it the product, and it was called the project. By the way, you'll see the CIA is using that kind of verbiage whenever they're talking about, they call them projects. That's all we knew the name of it was. But Lee Oswald is there to protect us, especially. But I recognized from the beginning because I had already worked with, I'll put it this way, I was in contact with anti-Castro people for a couple of years before coming to New Orleans. I even dated Tony Lopez Frisquet, whose father was Castro's finance minister.
Wow.
And yes, so I knew so much inside information, and that's why they made a mistake, and they thought I knew a lot more than I did. I ended up on that clandestine side of things. Lee Oswald is there to protect us. He pretends to be pro-Castro. He puts out flyers. They start rounding up people who respond to those flyers who are Castroites and pro-Castro, because Castro is sending people to New Orleans, all right, to ferret out who is against him, who is trying to kill him, because CIA made about 600 different attempts. Yeah, now he was completely paranoid about it, so it saved his life. And he had, he had people test his food and everything. But Oxner had worked for years. All right, I don't want to go into too much detail because it's in my book, Lee Harvey Oswald and Me, that you can get.
Well, and also, Judyth, people can, your book, 100%, Lee Harvey Oswald and Me, your Twitter handle has information and links to all of that. And then also the kill shot, which is actually linked in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show. So our documentary that you and I did together does tell
it's weird,
the story.
Shannon, because Amazon took the buy button away. So you have to really work at trying to click on other options to get the book.
Wow.
Well, at one time they took Me and Lee that I had in hardcover, and we wanted that for libraries and everything because paperback they won't buy, and what did they do? They hid that under salads and garnishes. So
unbelievable. Salads and garnishes.
Yes.
Oh, the lengths that they'll go to suppress
all
this
right.
story. So you get involved in the very, very messy business of creating a kill shot, a cancer shot.
And we know Castro is after us.
Yep.
They find us, they would poison us, waylay us. There were murders going on that have been hidden. In fact, everybody I worked with, ultimately, they were all murdered. And so then people said, well, you don't have any witnesses. Well, I do. And I've named some of them, all right? And they were alive and kicking.
Yep.
So and it's mainly women, because the men were higher targets, and all that. But we women, a lot of us survive. We can keep our mouths shut if we have to. That's amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing. It is.
So
tell us about the
Lee and I. Yeah, we became so closely enmeshed, he saved me. I cannot tell you, it's in the book. You can see the different times that he stepped in, and we had so much in common. And
Mm.
of course, heck, I could play chess with him. I knew Russian. I loved Russian literature. He could talk to me. I recognized immediately that there's no way this man would be walking around a free man after being all the newspapers he was in as being a defector. And then I see him walking around a free man. No way.
Mm.
Yeah. And he told me he was so glad when he arrived in Fort Worth and there were no newspaper reporters there or anything to greet him, even though when he left, it was in the newspaper. He said, "I denounce the United States. I renounce my citizenship. Uh, I will kill any U.S. soldier I see in uniform." And he comes back and nobody arrests him.
Right.
So I looked at him. It wasn't very long after I met him. I said, "You are a hero."
So what you're saying is that Lee Harvey Oswald was
Yeah.
not a communist. He was
No.
not a subversive. He was acting as an asset for intelligence, borrowed by the
Absolutely.
CIA from the Office of the Naval Intelligence, and playing a role so as to lure in other potential subversives or communists.
Well,
And
here's how they manipulated him. They, he learned more and more, and he wanted to help me because we had to kill like 500 mice at a time, and I had to go and analyze these tissues. I had help, of course, of David Ferry and so on, but it was enormous, and he started helping. He learned so much about it that they finally said, "Well, we're going to use you as a courier to take it down to Mexico City,
mm,
where you can hand it off to somebody." And when you do that, uh, remember, of course, you can teach them how to keep it alive and all that. We can't have any of this written down, so it all has to be oral. So he learned all of this orally. And when it was tested, he was there watching where it is injected and the methods used and how much x-ray and everything. Nothing written down. Now,
mm.
so
Can you tell us a little bit about the
he's
process
immersed.
of
Yeah.
of creating, like, you talk about the labs and the product. I mean, for the audience that is just learning your story, like, what were you doing? I mean, there were multiple houses. There's a big lab, the little lab,
Yeah, well,
David
there were
Ferry.
probably 5 or 6 labs. I know because they had sign-offs. That is, it would go to one. None of them knew what happened to it before, and it's going in a circle. And they're when you have gain of function, you start with a product. We called it a product, okay? And then you go and enhance it and make it more deadly. So you have to put it through another round of radiation. You pick out the fastest growing tumors. Imagine doing that for a whole year with thousands, probably 150,000 mice.
Unbelievable.
Then it goes to primates, that is monkeys. We started with marmosets. They were stuck. I was the one that suggested using marmosets, and sure enough,
Mm,
that worked. We had a cross species transfer at that time, and then here it goes again. Imagine the power of this material that we had, and it was through the SV40 monkey virus, which I will talk about in our next session.
yes.
What
Yes.
went on there? But now we have something that we now believe they never allowed Lee Oswald to take to Mexico City. They used that to lure him there.
Mm,
When nobody showed up to pick up the product, he was told, well, Hurricane Flora came through, and Castro had to send all his medical team out to help the people because of the damage done, and that's why it was called off.
right.
Well, that was an excuse. Anyway, it was an excuse. They said, "We want you to come back to Dallas." Oh, this is not the way the plan was supposed to work. He did everything he could, but it didn't work. At
Mm,
any rate, we had by then fallen in love. We wanted to get out of this mess because we realized that there was no guarantee that any of us were going to survive this thing. This
wow.
was a very highly compartmentalized project. And why do you keep witnesses if they're dispensable?
Wow. So
Yeah.
you're in New Orleans, you have created the cancer shot. It was tested on prisoners. They found that it worked. It did develop cancer in the prisoners after being
In
injected.
28 days, this
Yes.
was our original turbo cancer. We're seeing it presented now. I'll talk about that later.
Yes. Well, because it relates to vaccines and cancer today in the United States of America, which is part 2 of this interview with Judyth Vary Baker, which will air on Friday this week as a live event here in the Shannon Joy Show. So we're going to get into all of that. But for the purposes of Lee and the JFK assassination, you have created the cancer shot. Your mission is complete in some sense in New Orleans. The weapon has been created. Lee Harvey Oswald was then supposed to be deployed down to Mexico City to deliver the shot. And he was.
To this day, they are all, Shannon, they are still saying, we don't know if he went or not. And they've made books about this and debated it for 60 years. Of course he went. Why would you even think about it if it didn't happen? Think about that.
Right.
So the thing is Lee Oswald loved his country. You know what he told me? He said, my dad died before I was born. He said, my father is my country. And he loved his country. Right. When he was over in the USSR, this is why they thought he wasn't a spy. He actually said how much that he liked America.
Right.
Literally, and he refused to join the Communist Party. I mean, what spy does that? So he acted like pro-American and all this, never joined the Communist Party. And as such, they said, well, this guy can't be a spy. Look, I mean, a spy is going to say he loves USSR and so on,
So you and Lee want to get out of it all. He was supposed to be in New Mexico. They deployed him back to Dallas. They sent him for whatever reason. He ends up in Dallas just days before the assassination and in the day of the assassination of JFK.
He returns in early October. He's back, and he was not ready for that or anything. He goes and gets a temporary job with the Texas School Book Depository. Why? Because he was promised he could return to Mexico City and become, at that time, a informant for the CIA, pretending to be pro-Castro, just follow what he had been doing.
Right. Because everything freaked you guys out. You're like, we're in a dangerous situation here. We don't want to be involved in this anymore. You two are trying to extricate yourselves from all of this, get married, fall in love, go live your life. And so he takes the temporary job at the Texas school. But
that's right. He didn't take a permanent job.
Right.
And by the way, earlier, wherever he moved, he always had his wife move in right away. Not this time, because again, we were in love. Marina had just given birth to an anchor baby, so that if they divorce, she's not going to be deported, because if he just had divorced her without an anchor baby, she would have been deported along with his child that had been born in the USSR, little June.
Right.
He wanted that to happen. So he wanted to get her pregnant and everything like that. In the book, I tell all the ways that he trusted Ruth Paine. I want to debate Ruth Paine. Ruth Paine was a CIA asset. She's still alive. She has never been properly confronted by someone like me.
Wow.
I would like to wipe the floor with her, I'll tell you.
I'll host it. Ruth Paine versus Judyth Vary Baker.
Absolutely do it.
So let's move forward to the assassination, the last time you talked to Lee Harvey Oswald, and why you believe that not only was he not responsible for the assassination of JFK, but he was actively trying to stop it. This is according to your testimony and what you witnessed. Can you go ahead?
I mentioned Tosh Plumley, who has already spoken before Congress on the Contra stuff. He's CIA asset and contract pilot for the CIA, still alive, and he has affirmed, and we have him on record saying so, that Lee Oswald had joined the same it's kind of an organization that was set up secretly to try and abort any attempts to kill Kennedy. But they were overwhelmed. What the CIA did, and the enemies of Kennedy, is they put out so many threats, they weren't sure where to go. They got exhausted. They came late to Dallas, too late. But Lee had joined that abort team, and what happened is it made him locatable, and they have to wipe this man out. So they plant evidence against him. I never saw the rifle they're talking about. Lee showed me all the guns that he had. Lee, his last talk to me was an hour and a half long. He said they're going to kill him.
Oh.
and we cried. We prayed the Lord's Prayer together. Even and I was an atheist at the time, and he was like agnostic. But when there are no atheists in foxholes, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And you're a
we
believer
cried.
today. You're a believer today, aren't you?
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Christ came to me in a dream that wiped every notion that there was no God from my
Oh.
stupid.
Mm.
You know, the intelligence of Christ is outrageously enormous. I felt like a tiny little dot. I, all the things I know and everything I can do because I paint, write, compute, know my science in every direction, love AI, you name it.
Mm.
Uh, and God is, I just completely collapsed in front of him in worship.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. What an
Yeah.
amazing, amazing story. So you prayed and he was worried
Yeah.
that he was going to
And
kill him.
he cried and he said, I want you to go on with your life. Please just do this. Will you please tell my little girls that I was a good guy? And
Wow.
I waited so long and they grew up. I was so afraid.
Mm.
Why? All the people that I knew, they never contacted me again. I knew they were dead, and they were.
And so you spent many years. So you saw this play out. You saw
Yeah.
everything on the television and you saw,
No, I didn't.
no.
No. When I saw Lee shot before my eyes, I threw up, I screamed. I
Mm.
can't remember anything for about 2 days. Um, and I was so traumatized, I never looked at another. I didn't even know that the person that killed that Jack Ruby, his real name or the name I had been given was Sparky Rubenstein. I
Mm.
did because I only saw the back of this man who killed Lee. I didn't even know it was the man I knew and met
Mm.
who liked Lee and had to have been forced to do what he did. So I can't hold it against him because I know that he liked Lee from the get-go. And I never looked at a single thing. I raised 5 children. They never heard me say a word except accidentally once a green glass that Lee gave me. My son, he was 8 years old, and we had a big party. He reached up for it because we ran out of glasses. And I called across to him, no, don't. Lee Oswald gave me that glass. And we had 35 people there, and they went, what?
Wow.
And so I had to explain that Lee and I knew each other at Riley's, and we rode streetcars and buses together and so on.
Right. And so you went on with your life. I mean, it was an affair in every sense of the word.
It
Lee
wasn't
Harvey
an
Oswald
affair. It
was
was a
married.
real
It was
love.
it was a love story. But
Love. It
you had a
was.
spouse. You
Yeah.
had a spouse at the time and he had a spouse at the time. You then just kind of shrank back from the whole thing, retreated into your marriage, had 5 children and
Oh,
hit.
I didn't want to stay with him either, but I had
Yeah.
no choice.
Right, right. So you had to go into hiding. And now many people will ask, how have you survived this? If everyone there has been taken out, if they're dead, I mean, how have you been able to exist? I
Well,
mean, you did go into full hiding for many, many, many years and did not
yeah,
talk
I
about it.
even
Which was
became a
terrifying.
Mormon because even your first name vanishes. I was his sister Baker. Even my first name, Judyth, wasn't there anymore.
Wow.
And yeah, and I did many other things like that. And but I kept in my heart, I memorized everything every Thanksgiving around the time that Lee had been shot. I'm still traumatized because I saw it happen in front of my eyes, and it still chokes me up because I see things in pictures and I can see it right in front of me like it just happened.
Mm.
And it's difficult for me to talk about it even now. So, but the bottom line is that finally I realized, especially after the Lord made me feel like He's going to protect me because
Mm.
and I realized I had let all this time go by, and Lee, all he asked me to do is tell his little girls, and I let him down, and I let down the American people. So I said, okay, Lord, I don't care what happens to me. I was so protected, Shannon. Even though I got hit by cars, I had my brake line cut, had all kinds of things happen. I was accused by the History Channel of claiming to have helped develop AIDS. So I got many death threats. I was forced overseas. In 2007, uh, Edward T. Haslam's book, Dr. Mary's Monkey, came out, and I got death threats. I was teaching in Hungary. I was living
Mm.
overseas for almost 20 years to save my life after speaking out.
Mhm.
And when that came out in 2007, then I was on the run. I
Yeah.
applied for political asylum in Sweden. And the upshot is for 13 years, I had to move every 90 days for 13 years
Wow.
with wearing disguises. I wore, looked dressed like a Muslim in a burqa and everything, and
Mm.
had used sunglasses and wigs and you name it. Every 90 days for 13 years, I had to move to save my life.
Mm.
And I had made friends everywhere I went, because I love people and
I
they
know
feel
you.
it. Yeah, they
Yeah.
feel it. And
Yeah.
so I had many protectors. Then I
Yes.
got trapped over here with COVID. I said, okay, Lord, I'm going to speak out.
Mm.
I'm trapped here. I've lost my home in Sweden and I've all the protection. Swedes even allowed me to use fake name, you name it.
Yeah.
And
Unbelievable. Well, I do believe in divine protection, and I do believe that God is protecting you, Judith,
yes,
and he's protecting your voice. And you say emphatically that Lee Harvey Oswald did not involve himself in the assassination of JFK. What do you think did happen? Who do
well,
you
he
think?
did penetrate the ring
Yeah.
because they wanted him associated with them so they could blame it on him, all right, put him
Mhm.
in the right places. He had to make the decision to go ahead and be available like that and to penetrate them. That's how he was able to save Kennedy's life in Chicago. We have that witness, Abraham Bolden, needs to speak to Congress about that. An informant named Lee, 3 weeks before the assassination, uh, warned the FBI, which warned the Secret Service. They actually arrested our men and then they let them go.
Oh my word.
Yes.
Who do you
But,
think killed JFK?
well, let's put it this way. Who had the means, the motives, okay? And who desired to be a president more than anybody in history? Lyndon Baines Johnson. Now, I'm not saying he's the one that was the mastermind. Are you kidding? He's not going to have all that. But they couldn't have done it without his cooperation.
Wow.
No, yeah. Now, he had the choice of going to prison because he was in deep trouble. Kennedy was going to kick him off the ticket. Lee told me a lot. He told me, watch for these names, David Atlee Phillips.
Mm.
And then he said Bobby Baker and Billy Celestes. Now, recently, we have a tape that got released that was made by Billy Celestes, and he's talking to Clifford. Uh, that's LBJ's former main attorney. They're talking about how LBJ, helped to make sure that JFK was wiped out.
Wow. And so you're saying this was a plan executed by intelligence agency CIA
Well, it was
because
a very wide thing. Hoover was
not
involved.
believed. Yeah.
You have FBI, CIA, you have agencies, the Secret Service. You have somebody
And
on
this
the
is all though because the JFK himself was posing a threat to the system. He was going to dismantle a lot of this. And so you had one man who wanted ultimate power, LBJ, but then you also had these agencies that desired to protect their organizations
Yeah, he was gonna get
and
rid of them.
and cover
Kennedy
up,
was
but
gonna wipe
also
them out.
wield. But right, Judith, the other angle here is the wielding of power. When you have the assassination of the President of the United States of America, and then a subsequent assassination of his brother, Attorney General, and then a subsequent assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., all in rapid succession. This has a chilling effect on every elected official, every judge, every bureaucrat, every citizen in the
And guess who
US.
gets into power? The
The dark
people
side, yeah.
who obey and who are their puppets. And it is a consortium, it is a cabal, and they groom people to take over. And these people don't care about violence. I called Donald Trump the new JFK. So that's where his position is, to
Mm.
get the CIA cleaned up or even disposed of, just like JFK wanted to do. Everything JFK wanted to do, Trump wants to do. Now, I don't care if I lose followers. I'm telling you, I can see I've lived long. I'm 82 now,
Right.
or almost 82 in a couple of weeks. Okay. So what the heck? I
Yeah.
understand what's going on because I've seen it from the beginning. I'm
Yeah.
telling you right now, which party has done violence with KKK, with LBJ, with the wars, with everything? I'm not saying that I was once a Democrat. I mean, because I, my family, I was raised that way, you know, and all that.
Mhm.
Oh, they love us. I'm not so sure. I
Yeah.
think they love women.
I'm not so sure that for me, the jury is out with Trump. And I think we're going to have to wait and see if there is delivery
Well,
of this.
why do we have so much? How many death threats?
Mm,
Believe me, there. If you have change, we're going to save the country.
yeah.
We're
Well, I think that,
we are in danger.
that, right. Ultimately,
The media is not going to be nice to Trump
right.
or to Musk, and I'm not trying to make a statement here saying I support everything they do. I don't think anybody's perfect, but I
Mm,
do know one thing: I've never seen so much violence, and it's when uh,
well,
Mr. Biden was president. Did we have people getting burned? You know, their stores and things being burned.
mm.
Well, only certain ones. I don't.
Well,
I
but let's go
I
on.
go
So,
with boycotting, but I don't go with firebombing.
right. No, and listen, everyone has a different idea about the political threat.
Sure,
I think your story is actually much bigger than the politics of today. I think
absolutely.
that your story does tell of something that most Americans sense is at play, but really cannot put their finger on. And it's the idea that there are people behind the front facing politicians. There are people behind our organizations and our entities that will use people as assets. They will use individuals
And some
as,
may not even know it.
and some
So,
unwitting.
yeah,
So
like that was.
yeah, and I think this is one of the reasons, Judyth, that I always advocate with my audience to follow the principles, not the politician or the political party or the entity, because those things can be corrupted. Even if they're not corrupted today, tomorrow something could happen. There could be an event that corrupts them or puts them in a position to be unable to do the things that even they want to achieve. And we're seeing this even play out within this
Well,
administration
yes.
today.
And here's a key, and this key works. If a reporter or any organization or a media outlet or CBS, NBC, or whatever, if they say if that reporter or that organization is still saying Lee Harvey Oswald killed Kennedy, don't trust them on anything else.
Mm,
That is
very
a
interesting.
litmus test.
Yeah. Judah, thank you so much for being with us today. We got through it, and I think that the story was told. I hope it was told in a way that you approve of and that you're grateful for. I always want to give you that voice, but I appreciate your bravery and your courage, and just your dogged persistence in getting the truth out there. You have taken a ton of slings and arrows, and I hope that this audience
And
will
you are too by having me. You're going to have
absolutely.
trouble.
Mhm.
All right. And so I applaud you. I appreciate the opportunities you're giving me. I just want to say one more thing. Lee Oswald loved his country so much, he was willing to give up his life to try to save JFK.
Yes. Well, and I think that you're making your case. And I think the next step here is for those of you who find Judyth's testimony to be compelling, even if you don't completely agree with it or believe all of it. If you believe that there should be eyewitness testimony, people who were there in New Orleans in 1963, people who can corroborate Judyth's story, who can present the evidence to Congress, then maybe it's time for us to demand that Congress end the dog and pony show that we're seeing today regarding JFK and the release of the files and actually do the investigation that needs to be done. And that would feature in the center the testimony from Judyth Vary Baker. I think we can all agree on that. Why would we be afraid of a presentation of the truth according to what you saw in
And
1960?
I have the receipts. I do.
Yeah.
And the witnesses.
Yeah. All right. So call your congressperson. Okay. Anyone who wants to say, and other media outlets. I'm seeing a lot of media outlets out there who are investigating the JFK files and omitting an interview with Judyth Vary Baker. I think we need to get her out everywhere on more and more platforms. And Judyth, please let everyone know now how they can help you, get in contact with you, how they can find your research and your receipts and all of the information that you have to present.
Well, they can just go ahead to @Judyth, Judyth, go to X. Elon Musk gave me my account. That's why I'm supporting him so much.
Yeah.
Is the minute he actually bought Twitter, I got my account back. That account had been sidelined because I mentioned ivermectin. And I'll talk about that
Unbelievable.
later. All
Yeah.
right.
Well, yeah, make sure,
Facebook
guys.
took me off too. After
Yeah,
13
stay
years on
tuned
Facebook. Yeah.
for Friday. We're going to do part 2 of this interview with Judyth Vary Baker. If you can believe it, we've just scratched the surface as to your story regarding New Orleans in 1963. So we're going to get into gain of function research. We are going to get into weaponized cancer in a shot. We are going to get into SV40 and the contamination of so many vaccines and shots that are regularly taken by Americans today. So this is Judyth's book, Lee Harvey Oswald and Me. And they can buy that by going to your Twitter account, Judyth?
They can go to Amazon.
Okay.
But there's no, last I looked, they didn't have a buy button. So you have to go to other options.
Okay.
And then
and search recipes. Right. Amazing. All right. Thank you all for being with us today here on the Shannon Joy Show. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to Judyth. Make sure you set your calendar for this Friday, part 2 of this interview, live exclusive with Judyth Vary Baker. Thank you to Annie for producing the show, colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. That is where I go to get my gold and silver, and we love them here at the Shannon Joy Show. Of course, our friends over at All Family Pharmacy, as I mentioned, fenbendazole is back in stock. So allfamilypharmacy.com/joy. Always use that Joy10 promo code to get an extra 10% off. And of course, our friends over at Blackout Coffee, 20% off today, blackoutcoffee.com/joy. It's popped into the live chat. That's blackoutcoffee.com/joy. Use that JOY promo code for an extra 10% off, a full 20% off your entire order. Thank you guys so much for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again right here on the Shannon Joy Show.